Amen. Was that great gift exchange fun or what? Man, that was exciting. We went out, several of us, on Monday night. I think there were 15 or 16 of us there that volunteered packing those toys up. And then on Tuesday night, several of us came back and we got to distribute those. And we got to see the smiles on those little kids' faces. And it was kind of funny. You know, I never think of myself necessarily as being a person of privilege. But as I saw that we were basically packing the same toys in a lot of those bags, and we were, especially the ones who were working with me, we were trying to mix it up a little so all the kids didn't get the same things, and I thought, man, that's just going to kind of stink if they get there and they open them up and they all get the same things. You know, they're going to hate it. And those kids got there and opened those bags, and I mean, it's impossible for me to describe the joy that was on their faces, just from a couple of little toys. And it reminded me the situation that some people are living in. And so it was awesome to be a part of that. There's going to be more outreaches coming in the future. In fact, one of them, I don't have all the details yet, so I hesitate to share it with you. But on December 30th, Bella Vista Assembly of God, who has kind of helped partner with us and parent us in this process, they're going to be doing a homeless feed in Fayetteville. They do it on any fifth Saturday, and they have invited us to come to be a part of that because I told them a while back, it's really awesome when I can tag on the outreaches of other churches because it's a lot easier than trying to plan one with the limited people resources that we have. So I know many of us will be at Winter Retreat that weekend, so we won't be able to be a part of that. But I will be asking a family to take point on that, and any of you who want to be a part of that, be sure and let us know. Also, I want to remind you before I get into the word that next week is the potluck. I've told several of you about it, but I want to tell you again, and I'll probably tell you again on your way out today, because I had so much fun at the Thanksgiving potluck that we're going to do one for Christmas, and we're going to do it next Sunday. And I've been asked by Christina to tell you of something that I'm firmly against, but that is that we are going to have a sign-up sheet for what food to bring, and I guess that'll be out in the lobby there. Me personally, I would rather show up and have 4 kinds of mashed potatoes again, because that was amazing and I loved it. But it was amazing. It was so good. But I have apparently been voted down. And so we will have a sign-up sheet for something for you to bring in addition to your mashed potatoes. Today I want to start with a question. Does anybody here like being comfortable? I know for a fact that a few people do. One would be Samuel. I saw a picture last night with him curled up on his daddy asleep after dinner. And he looked extremely comfortable. And Seth and Megan and Maybell. I know most of you probably aren't friends with them on Facebook because Megan is very stingy with her Facebook friendships. But they posted a picture of the 3 of them just from the mid-thigh down wearing matching Christmas pajamas, like fleece pants. And all just kind of snuggled up on the couch watching TV, and I could tell that they like to be comfortable. I'm going to tell you something about myself, and before I do, I'm going to move this because it's going to become a problem if I don't. I'm also going to mute it, Todd. There we go. Okay. I'm going to be open and honest and transparent with you this morning and tell you that I love to be comfortable. It's one of my favorite things, in fact. It's probably the reason that I like being at home more than I like going out. You know, I mean, some people, they always want to be going. They want to be running, going somewhere. I'm not that guy. I want to be at home on my couch, snuggled up with a fleece blanket, spending time with my family because I love being comfortable. There's something about being comfortable that just makes the world feel right. In fact, I'll give you some evidence to this, and I normally wouldn't share this, and hopefully Christina doesn't get upset with me, but again, I'm trying to be transparent and open and honest, so I'm going to share this with you. Our family started doing something a few months ago at my suggestion. It was my idea, and it is basically the epitome of comfort. It's something that we like to call mega couch. Mega Couch is awesome. Okay, so we have this big couch. I think it's big. I mean, I've couch shopped before. It's a large couch, and it has these big cushions that kind of sit on the back of it. So instead of the back of the couch being soft, it has all these big, huge cushions that go against the back of the couch. So many cushions, in fact, that to sit on it and use it normally, you have to take some of the cushions off and throw them on the floor, because otherwise you would fall off the front of the couch. So we have this big, huge, comfortable couch, and then we have a matching love seat that's also big and comfortable. It's just not quite as long as the couch is. And what we will do is we will take the couch and the love seat and move them together face to face, perpendicular to the television. And voila, you have Mega Couch. Because then what will happen is every family member will climb over the arm or the back of the couch and claim their spot so that we can watch a movie together. And it is the most comfortable situation that I've ever been a part of. I love, except for there's this company called Lovesac that makes this weird kind of furniture, and those are really cool. But other than that, Mega Couch is the most comfortable spot I've ever been in. What's funny is seeing some of your facial responses to what I'm telling you. Some of you are looking at me judgingly. And to you I say shame. Shame on you. This is a safe place. And I'm being open and honest and transparent, and you shouldn't make me feel bad about myself. There's another group of people that are looking at me, and I see it's almost a painful uncomfortableness and confusion that is on your face. Those are the ones that I can tell you have OCD. You're like, wait a minute, you moved the couch out of its proper place? To those of you, and you know who you are, I want to tell you, it's okay. Because the couch and the love seat get put back in their proper place when we're done using Mega Couch. And then there's a third group of people, led by Randy, who right now are trying to decide if you can do Mega Couch in your house. To that group of people, I want to say a couple of words of warning. First of all, there's some drawbacks to Mega Couch, and the first one is this, that if you ever speak about it publicly, people will judge you. You know who I'm talking to. The second thing, though, and the more important thing, is this. Once you are in Mega Couch, you will never want to leave. But at some point, you realize you have to. At some point, you realize that no matter how comfortable it is, and no matter how much you love it, you've got to go. And there are two things generally that cause you to leave Mega Couch. The first one is obligation or responsibility. And it's so weird because you're laying there in Mega Couch and you're watching a movie and you're loving your family time, but you realize that at some point the dishes aren't going to do themselves, or the laundry has to be done, or the dog needs to be fed. At some point there's going to be responsibility that you have to take, which requires you to leave the comfort of Mega Couch. And Mega Couch is so comfortable that when that time comes, it makes obligations and responsibilities that may not normally seem like that big of a deal, seem like a huge deal. It makes things that normally you might even enjoy a little bit, it makes you dread them. But the other thing that makes you leave Mega Couch is the one that we want to talk about today, and that thing is compassion. Compassion. You see, because what will happen is, no doubt when you are snuggling with your family on Mega Couch watching Elf, at some point, somebody is going to need something. Either one of the kids is going to say they're cold and they need a blanket, or we're going to need a snack and everybody wants a snack, and somebody's going to have to get up and take care of that. And in that moment, again, I will be open and honest and tell you that Christina has a lot more compassion than I do. Because in that moment, what will happen is Christina will let compassion drive her decisions instead of comfort. In that moment, Christina will get up and leave Mega Couch and go get the kids a blanket, or go make everyone some popcorn, or go do whatever it else is that needs to be done. And that's what I want to talk about today. See, we're talking about what's driving you. Remember last week we started the series called What's Driving You, and we talked about how sometimes people will allow fear to drive their decision-making process rather than allowing faith to drive their decision-making process. We talked about how people will make the wrong decisions because of fear and will miss out on what God actually has for them because of fear. And then I challenged you to trust God and be obedient in your life, in the areas of your life, your family, and your finances. I'm hoping that this week you had the opportunity to put your faith into action in overcoming fear. But today we continue the series, What's Driving You, when we talk about comfort or compassion. I want you to turn in your Bibles, please, to Matthew chapter 5. We're going to be reading verses 13 through 16 from the God's Word translation. And as soon as we're done with that, we're going to jump to Matthew chapter 9, verses 35 through 38. So we're going to start in Matthew 5. And this section that we're going to read is part of a passage that we call the Sermon on the Mount. So Jesus was out walking with his disciples, and he looked around and he realized that there was a large crowd of people following them. So what Jesus did was he climbed a mount, he climbed a hill basically, so that he could be up higher than everyone and he could teach them. And the first thing that Jesus does is he goes into completely rocking their world, telling them that it's not the wealthy and the good-looking and the smart and the funny people that are blessed, but it's the meek and the humble and the downtrodden and the mournful people that are blessed. And once he gets them off their game by saying that, he goes into this section that we're going to read starting in verse 13. And he says this to his disciples. You are the salt for the earth, but if salt loses its taste, how will it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled on by people. And he says, you are the light for the world. A city cannot be hidden when it is located on a hill. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket. Instead, everyone who lights a lamp puts it on a lampstand. Then its light shines on everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine in front of people. Then they will see the good that you do and will praise your Father in heaven. Now please turn to Matthew chapter 9, verses 35 through 38, just a few pages back. It reads, Jesus went to all the towns and villages. He taught in the synagogues and spread the good news of the kingdom. He also cured every disease and sickness. When he saw the crowds, he felt sorry for them. They were troubled and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, the harvest is large, but the workers are few. So ask the Lord who gives this harvest to send workers to harvest his crops. It's interesting to me how Jesus' perspective changes in these few chapters. We don't know exactly how long takes place between Matthew chapter 5 and Matthew chapter 9, but most scholars will tell you that it was roughly a year. We believe that Matthew 5 happened in 27 AD and that Matthew chapter 9 was in 28 AD. And in chapter 5, Jesus tells his disciples, you are the salt for the earth. You are the light for the world. In one statement, he gives them honor, responsibility, and then a word of caution not to get complacent, not to get too comfortable. He says, you're salt. You're the flavor that the world needs. But if you lose what makes you salty, if you lose what makes you different, what good are you? Then he follows up with, you are the light for the world. How awesome must that feel? To have Jesus himself say, you are the light that the world needs. You're the light that the world needs. Let yourself shine. But then he reminds his disciples of the great words of Spider-Man's Uncle Ben. With great power comes great responsibility. He says, guess what? You've got it. You're the light. You're the ones that I chose. And because I chose you, you have what the world needs. All you got to do is let them see it. And then he says, but, remember that sermon series on the biggest buts of the Bible that I'm going to preach someday? It's going to be a long series. He says, but, because I chose you, because you have what the world needs, you have a job to do. He says, no one lights a lamp and then sticks it under a basket. He says, we light lamps and we put them on lampstands. You have a responsibility to let the world see your light. He says, let your light, shine in front of people. Be salty. Be bright. And in this moment, in chapter 5, Jesus doesn't say anything else about them needing more help. Jesus doesn't say, you are some of the light. He doesn't say, you're the beginning of the light, but you're going to need to go gather more light to be light with you. He just says, hey, disciples, you 12 guys, you're the light. Let yourself shine. Maybe Jesus knows or believes that the message is so powerful that people will just naturally flock to it. That people will just naturally come towards the light and become a part of it. Or maybe he is so confident in the people that he's chosen that he knows that they will naturally build an army of light around them. We don't know why Jesus doesn't say you need more people. He just says you're the light. But over the next year, before we get to chapter 9, Jesus goes through a lot. Jesus goes through 1/3 of his public ministry in those few chapters. He goes from town to town and village to village, and he sees a lot of people and a lot of needs. And I don't know if Jesus ever got discouraged with his task. I really don't. I know that ministry is difficult. I know that Jesus had to deal with a lot of people, and that sometimes most assuredly frustrated him. But I don't know if he ever got discouraged. But I do find the next passage we read in chapter 9 to be a little bit saddening. Because I believe that what we see there is a glimpse of Jesus in a true moment of sadness himself. You see, he's been traveling for a year doing ministry. It says he's been teaching in the synagogues. He's been spreading the gospel. He's been healing people. And then in chapter 9, verse 36, it says, when he saw the crowds, he felt sorry for them. They were troubled and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. And he turns to his disciples and says, the harvest is large, but the workers are few. So ask the Lord to send workers. In chapter 5, Jesus says, you're the light, let it shine. In chapter 9, he says, you're not enough, pray for more people. Somebody say, what changed? I'm glad you asked. Because I have an opinion on that. It's an opinion that I've come to after reading several different commentaries on this passage written by a lot of men that are much smarter than I am. You see, when it says that Jesus saw the crowds and felt sorry for them, I don't believe that it meant he saw a crowd of people around him in that moment. I believe that what it meant, and if you look back in the King James, it says when he saw the multitudes. I believe that what it meant was he had traveled from city to city and town to town and village to village, and he had been confronted over and over and over with people who were hurting, who were sad, who were lost, who were dying, who were like sheep without a shepherd. He saw this multitude of people, and then he remembered that pretty soon he was going to be gone. And how in the world could these 12 men that were still following Jesus around minister to the multitudes of people who were hurting? So it says that Jesus felt sorry for them. Today we're talking about what drives you, comfort or compassion. And if you look back at the King James Version in this passage, when it's translated here that he felt sorry for them, King James Version says he had compassion on them. And in this moment of extreme compassion, he urged his disciples to pray for more workers. Because there was a lost and dying world that needed light. And there wasn't enough light in those 12 guys. And I think he saw that the priests of the day weren't doing what they should be doing either. They had come to a place where they were serving themselves instead of serving the people. They were supposed to be the under-shepherds caring for his flock. But instead, they were caring for themselves, and his flock was lost. He knows the disciples can't do it alone, but there's going to have to be an entire church on earth serving as salt and light. So now we fast forward 2,000 some odd years. The church has definitely grown. It's grown to be billions of people. What was once 12 followers, the latest study says is now somewhere around 2.4 billion people that are believers in Jesus. The estimates say there's around 1.3 billion Catholics, 100 million Baptists, 80 million Lutherans, 70 million Methodists, 45 million Presbyterians, 280 million Pentecostals, 67 million of which are Assemblies of God. So the light has the potential to be huge. This raging, flaming bonfire of light. When I was youth pastor at Trinity Fellowship, we would do a bonfire every year, and the greatest one we ever did was probably the last one we ever did. No, that's a lie. It was the second to last, because the last one they shut down because of wind. The second to last one we ever did was out in Goshen, and we found every scrap of any combustible material we could find and put it out in the middle of a field. And before we lit it, that pile was about 12 feet high and 12 feet around. And it took Justin and I some time to actually get it lit with lots of gasoline and lots of tools. That thing was huge. And that's what I imagine the light that is the church today could be like. This huge, raging fire that can be seen from miles and miles. One in every town. The earth has the potential to be really, really salty. But I wonder how many of those 2.4 billion people are driven by comfort and how many are driven by compassion. How many of the 2.4 billion go to church? Sometimes. They celebrate Easter and Christmas. They maybe have a picture of Jesus hanging up in their house, one of those creepy ones that follows you as you walk across the room. I should never go off notes. But otherwise, they just hang out in a big, comfortable, spiritual mega couch. Just being Christians. I hope and pray that we are a group that's not like them, but that we're driven by compassion to get off of mega couch and be the light and the salt that the world needs. That's what CenterPoint Church needs to be. That's what I long for us to be. That's what we're called to be. And now I'm going to tell you what that looks like. You see, one of the last things that Jesus ever told his disciples when he left is something we call the Great Commission. The Great Commission is recorded in Matthew 28:19 and Mark 16:15 and 16. And it basically says this. This is the Brian's cool version, the BCV. Go into all the world, preach the gospel, baptize them, and teach them everything that I've told you. 4 keys to being driven by compassion. Go, preach, baptize, and teach. Number 1, go. Jesus says, go into all the world. Go into all the world. The first thing that we have to do to be driven by compassion is we have to move. You see, when we're all sitting on Mega Couch watching Elf, and Courtney says, I'm cold. Or some other person says, I'm hungry. If nobody moves, nothing changes. But when Christina is driven by her compassion for her family to get up and do something about it, then everybody's full, warm, and happy. You know, some people, I think, take that thing that Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5 about us being a city on a hill, and they take it a little too literally. They literally want the church to be just a light up on a hill that sits and waits for travelers to find them. Jesus said, go into all the world, but we act like he said, build a building and then wait. They want to just sit and shine and wait on people to come and see what the light is all about. But Jesus doesn't say wait for all the world to come to you. He says go into all the world. Church, we have to go. Listen, I love coming here and being together with you on Sundays. I absolutely love it. I look forward to it every week. But I don't love it nearly as much as I loved being out on Monday and Tuesday night with you guys, packing up those gifts and giving them to little kids and showing them the love of Christ. I like that a whole lot more than I like this. In fact, if we could build a church that only did this once a month and on all the other times went out and did that, that's what I would do. I'm going to love coming together next week after service and eating mashed potatoes, among other things, with you guys. Please don't let me understress the mashed potatoes. But I won't love that nearly as much as I love going to Honduras with you guys next year, or going to St. Louis and doing inner city missions work, or going right down here a few miles to Chapel Ridge Apartments and telling those little kids that there's a Jesus who loves them and a Heavenly Father who loves them and wants to have a relationship with them. I'm going to love that a whole lot more than hanging out with you guys. Number one, you've got to go. And this looks different for everybody. For some people, go into all the world literally means they have to go across the world to another place and another people. Somebody asked me the other day, like, where are Jared and Dena at? You guys remember Jared and Dena? Jared's guy looks kind of like me, and I don't know, that's the only way I can describe him. He's a normal guy. Dena was up here on the worship team, and they have like 16 little kids that were back in kids' church. Jared and Dena met with us a few weeks ago, and we knew this before the church ever started. We had talked with them. But literally in July, they are planning on moving their whole family to South Asia to minister to a group of Muslims there that have never heard about Jesus. That's what go means to them. So the reason they're not here now, they're still part of our church, but they're out itinerating, trying to raise money to go do what God called them to do. And by the way, we need to support them as a church. For some of you, going into all the world may mean doing short-term mission trips. I love taking people on short-term mission trips, not because of necessarily the work that we get done there, but because what it does is it plants a seed in people's hearts to help people who are less fortunate than us. See, what happens is you take people on a trip for 6 or 8 or 10 days and you paint a school or you give clothes to the kids in the orphanage, and it does good for them. But then those people come home and they just can't get it out of their heart. And then they start sending money to the missionaries who are in that country, like Jared and Dena are going to be soon, and supporting them doing the work there on the ground. Some of you can go in your finances. Other people can go in prayer. I promise you there's not anything you can do for a missionary that is more impactful than praying for them on a daily basis. If you don't do that now, you need to find a missionary that you can get behind, and you need to pray for them every single day. And by the way, pray for me too. Number one, you have to go. Number two, he says preach. Now, we just lost a lot of people. See, a lot of people, when I said, you got to go, they're like, yes, I can do this. I can go on a missions trip. I can pray for missionaries. I can send some money. But as soon as I said preach, you're like, oh, wait a minute, preacher. That's your job, not mine. There's a shirt that I've seen and a quote that people often credit to St. Francis Assisi, which says, preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words. Now, if you've heard that before, I want to tell you that, first of all, St. Francis never said that. Whoever made that up lied when they said it was him. They wanted to sell t-shirts with his picture on them. But there is a quote that I heard from our district youth director, Dane Hall, in referring to that quote. And he said, oh, phooey. Jesus never said, act like the gospel. He said, preach the gospel. And we do have to make sure that our words and our actions are in line and that we are living Bibles, so to speak. But Jesus never gave you an out that said you don't have to tell people about him. It's always necessary to use words. I would love to be able to stand here today. I really would. Because it'd be a lot more popular sermon. I would love to be able to stand here and say, listen, you don't have to actually talk to people. Just wear a Christian t-shirt. You know, just carry your Bible with you. Just invite them to church. But guys, that's not what we're called to do. Because I tell you what, that Christian t-shirt that you wear or that Bible that you're carrying doesn't do a bit of good if the person doesn't understand the why behind the what. And the why is Jesus Christ, and the why is love. And the why is the compassion that is supposed to move us into the world. So yeah, you need to tell people about Jesus. Peter says, basically, again, this is the BCV, act like a Christian. And then when people ask you why you act like a Christian, always be ready to give them a reason for the hope that you have. I can't tell you how many times, and it crushes me every time I've seen it, when I'll be out with it's usually with students. I'll be out with a student who is always happy and always joyful and loves the Lord and is living a good Christian life. And someone says, you know what, I've noticed you're always happy. Why are you so happy? And they say, I don't know, it's just the way I am. I'm like, I've been with you at 11 o'clock at night on sleepovers or lock-ins, and I've been with you at 6 a.m. on mission trips, and it's not just who you are. Tell them about Jesus. Guys, there are some very disheartening statistics that say, it was a study fairly recently, a few years ago, that said that 82% of unchurched people would come to church if they were asked. 70%, in that study, 70% of unchurched people said they had never once in their life been invited to church. And here's the worst part. Only 2% of Christians in the study said that they had invited someone to church within the past year. 2%. So here's your out that I will give you. I'm not removing the responsibility that Jesus put on you to preach the word, but I'll give you this. As a baby step in the right direction, just invite people to church. In fact, set a goal. Start with a baby goal. I'm going to invite one person to church every week. Now, let me tell you what the statistics say about that. And Seth could do this a lot faster than me, and it's not in my notes, so I'm going to get it wrong, and he can correct me, because he is a phenom when it comes to numbers. But if you invite 52 people a year to church, 10% of that is 5.2 people. 80% of that, we're going to round down from 82, 80% of that is 52 people? 51 people? Ish. He's trying to not make me look stupid, and I appreciate that. So if you invite one person to church every week that is unchurched, the statistics say that in the long run, 50 of them a year are going to come. And I promise you that if 50 of them come in a year, or even 20 of them, that they're going to hear about Jesus, and they're going to hear about how much he loves them. And it could be a baby step towards you preaching the gospel. And then once you get comfortable inviting one person to church a week, then say, you know what? I'm going to go above and beyond. I'm going to double it. I'm going to invite 2 people every week. And then when you get that down, I want you to invite 3 people every week. And then when you get that down, I'm going to change it to this week. I'm going to invite 3 people to church, and I'm going to talk to one person about why I go to church. I'm going to tell one person about Jesus. Number 1, you have to go. Number 2, you have to preach. Number 3 is the fun part, because if you do number 1 and 2, number 3 just kind of happens, and it's baptize. Guys, I'm so excited. I told you this before. I said this in our very first launch team meeting. I cannot wait until we baptize our first person in this church. And some of you are looking around and you're like, we don't have a tank. And I'm telling you, I don't care. When the time comes, I will find something that will hold water. I have bad news. I sold the deep freeze that we were going to use to baptize people in because we had no place to store it, and I wanted to send somebody to winter retreat, so that's what we did. But I'll find something to hold water, and I'll tell you what, Lowell Assembly of God, which is the church that existed for 50 some odd years and that is the reason we are here today, they baptized a lot of people over the years with no tank. And I can tell you from personal experience that in April, Beaver Lake is cold. I want to baptize people. I want people to come in. I want them to hear about Jesus. I want them to give their life to him. And then I want to hold them underwater until the devil comes out. And you know what? If you witness to them and you lead them to Jesus, I'll let you hold them underwater till the devil comes out. Now, for those who don't know that I'm joking, I am. It's a very simple process. You just go under, you go right back up. We'll tell you all about it if that time comes, but anyways, I want to baptize people. I want people's lives to be changed when they meet Jesus. And then I want us to follow him in water baptism. Number 1, go. Number 2, preach. Number 3, baptize. And finally, he says, teach them all that I have told you. Jesus Christ said more in 3.5 years of ministry on this planet than most of us will say in our entire lives. Let me clarify. Jesus Christ said more of note in his 3.5 years of ministry on this planet than most of us will say in our entire lives. The best thing that we can do once somebody becomes a Christian is teach them the things that he said. I want us to have a strong discipleship program here where we bring people in and they get saved, and we have a program that they go through that teaches them the things that Jesus taught us. But let me be clear, because I feel like the church has gotten it backwards. Like in the whole Great Commission, they've gotten it backwards. He says, go, preach, baptize, and teach. And what many churches today are doing, instead of go, they wait. Instead of preach, they wait. Instead of baptize, they wait. But they will teach like crazy. They will go to every non-believer they can find and tell them everything they're doing wrong. They will stand on the rooftops symbolically and scream, don't be a drunkard, don't be a homosexual, don't be a bigot, don't be a racist. They will scream from the rooftops everything that people shouldn't do, which they're legitimate things that people shouldn't do. But we're supposed to wait until we've gone and preached and baptized people to then teach them how to live a Christian life and walk with them step in step, hand in hand through the process. We're talking about what drives you. Christina tells me that she can always tell when I'm going off my notes because my level of passion is different, which is silly because it's the same person writing the words and saying the words regardless. But I think she's right. And you could probably tell today that I'm extremely passionate about what we're talking about. I want us to be driven not by our comfort level, not by what we're okay with and what we're comfortable with, but I want us to be driven by compassion for a lost and dying world who needs a Savior. In our first week in existence, we all came together, and honestly, I don't even remember what we preached on. I think it was moving forward or something like that. In that service, somebody raised their hand and said they wanted to give their life to the Lord. And I told people the next day, if we closed our doors today and we're done, it's all been worth it. And that's the same way I feel about every person that comes to know Christ. So today I challenge you to be a church that's driven by compassion. I challenge you to go, then to preach, and let's baptize some people, and then teach them how to live a Christian life. Can we do that? Amen. This isn't very altarly, but I want to tell you something. The experts will tell you that Christmas Eve is one of the most well-attended services at a church. The people that will go to church no other time of the year will go on Christmas Eve. So this year we have a very special opportunity because Christmas Eve is on a Sunday. And I want to challenge you, don't make that a day to stay home with your family. Make a point between now and then to invite as many people as you can to come to church with you on Christmas Eve. And I'm going to preach a phenomenal sermon. I don't know if that's true or not. But I'm going to preach a sermon like I always do that's probably a little bit different than what most people have heard. And I'm praying and fasting and believing that some people are going to give their lives to Christ on Christmas Eve at CenterPoint Church. So do that with me. Next week, I'll make sure that we have our invite cards that you guys gave out before we launched. We'll have those bundled up for you to go take to people and give out. We'll make a Facebook event and push it out. We'll do everything we can to help you. But let's make a push. I can't think of any better thing to happen on the day that we celebrate Jesus' birth than somebody get a chance to meet him for the first time.